What's up, guys? Coach Jestyn with Nova RYU BJJ, and I'm super excited about today's episode. I'm here with the great McCane. Thank you for coming on the channel, brother. Appreciate you. Really looking forward to this conversation and what technique you have to show us later. You are the owner and head coach at GRPL Club here in Sumner, Washington.
Yes, sir.
And you've been training for quite a long time, and you've had kind of an interesting journey. I know you, in addition to training for a long time, you've trained in multiple places, different countries, and have had a lot of experience. Do you want to take us through kind of your upbringing and what brought you to jiu-jitsu and your journey through it?
For sure. I have some phases on my journey in jiu-jitsu. I started when I was 11 to 12 years old in Rio, in a gym called Instituto Reação today. Back in the days, it was a social project called Judô Comunitário Geraldo Bernardes. So it's a Portuguese word, but it's a community judo that has a jiu-jitsu club in it. Okay. So my professor was called Silvestre Travassos, and I started with him. And my first 6 years of jiu-jitsu was on that place, specific there. I got all my belts from him, since my blue belt all the way to my black belt. But after I got my brown belt, I was 18 years old. I moved for a different state in Brazil called Minas Gerais, and not just for a different state, but a super small city. I came from Rio, that is a big city, probably like 6 million people, to a small city that has less than 100,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big difference for me. And I was already a brown belt, training a lot, but that was a period of my life that was a little hard for me to learn, because imagine having that transition, having someone that I can look up to and just ask questions, say, hey, professor, how I do this, how I do that. And when I moved, I started training in a small gym and didn't have really a lot of people to teach me. So I feel that that's when I started to develop my my second kind of role in jiu-jitsu, that I started teaching. Especially because I didn't have a lot of training partners. What I did was try to build my own.
Sure.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna have that student that start training, let's make him good so I can have training partners so I can compete. I live in Minas from 2008, around 2008 all the way to 2011, and then I moved back to Rio. So when that happened, my professor called me one day and said, hey, what are you doing? Are you training? I was like, yes, I'm training. And he's like, hey, I have a sponsor here and I'm bringing some guys to compete. Do you want to come in here? I was like, of course I want. So I went to Rio. We flew to Gramado, and was a World Pro competition from Abu Dhabi.
Okay.
Where the winner of that division get the ticket to go to Abu Dhabi to fight and compete on the World Pro. So I was a brown belt still, and the division was brown belts and black belts together. When I went there, I had a very good result. I think, if I remember correctly, I got 4th place. I lost on the semifinals, and it was just one 3rd place. And the 3rd place was the guy that lose for the champion. I lost for the 2nd place. So after that, he saw that I was still training, and he's like, hey, you're wasting your time. Come back here, let's keep training, let's make something. And that's when I came back to Rio. And I started training again under his wings, under his tutelage. And that was a new phase of my life where I was like, okay, let me come back to the competition scenario. I was still a brown belt, and that start competing a lot and having good results. I entered in the tournament, and he didn't told me. And when I got there, he put me in the black belt division to compete. And I was like, oh, okay. It was a state tournament in Rio, so it was a big, good tournament.
Yeah.
And I went all the way to the finals, and I lost in the finals by points. And I was like so devastated. And
as a brown belt.
Yes, yeah. But I put the black belt on my waist and I went and fight. When I came back to the gym, it's like, no, put your brown belt. You're still a brown belt. So I stayed a few months, I feel, still as a brown belt. And we used to have a tradition where the promotions was always in the end of the year. And it was like a group promotion where all the students go, have like food. It was a very good event. And on that week, the party is supposed to be on a Friday. He passed away on a Monday. Yeah, so he was a helicopter instructor, and he had an accident. So I received actually my black belt for the hands of his mom.
Oh, wow.
Yes, that was like very emotional at the time. It was like a very hard time. And after that, I kind of looked myself like what I'm still doing here. I kind of got lost in Rio, didn't have a lot to do. He was the guy that was really guiding me.
He was your
So,
mentor.
yes. So I took the decision and I came back to Minas. And the time that I was in Minas before, I got married, had a kid, and then I divorced when I came back to Rio. So my idea was like, okay, I want to come back to close to my son. And that was my third part of my journey where when I got back, I opened my own gym
Okay.
back in Minas. And again, I started to develop the work. And on top of that, I also went to school again. I started to go to college to be a PE teacher.
Oh, wow.
And that's where I really think that my way to teach and to see Jiu-Jitsu changed a little bit because I learned a lot about didactic and how you learn things, how your brain work, how the different age learn, how they, you know what I mean, how they learn differently. And I'm gonna teach the same thing I teach for an adult. I can teach the same thing, but in a different way for a kid.
Sure.
So that's when I start like, oh, okay, I think I have another path that is not just the competition. I maybe can teach Jiu-Jitsu too. And that's when I really got into studying, like go to seminars, watch instructionals. And because that time when I moved from Rio to Minas, I didn't have no one to really teach me, I developed a way to learn by myself. Learning, studying, learning, watching new people, going to tournaments and watching. And that was very beneficial for me in a way because make easier for me to teach everyone. Even if I don't know the technique, I can see, I can learn, and I can teach to you. And that was, I feel, where I most grow as a professor, was that time frame. And that's when I met my actual wife now. And when we got together, we got a house, and like, okay, I want to do a gym. So I built a gym in my own house back in the days. I stayed there all the way to 2019. That was the year that I moved here to the U.S.
Okay.
I had a friend living in Everett, and I was like, okay, start to communicate with him back and forth. I was like, hey man, you can make a good living here, and because of my dad, he is American, so I always had the citizenship through him.
Okay.
So that makes it always easier for me to just whatever I want, I can enter in the U.S. and can do something. And I think was, I don't know, lucky, you can destiny, whatever, but everything kind of aligned. When I got in here, the situation was not very good. I got in here with like $700 in my pocket and tried to figure out everything. And when I got in here, the first gym I went was Cascade with Professor Andrew, and he opened the doors for me. It was super cool. And I always said, everyone asked me, hey, it's what is your religion? I say Jiu-Jitsu. Because that's the way I learned how to treat people. That's where I feel safe. That's where I feel good. So when I have the hard time coming here, that's the first place I look for, a Jiu-Jitsu gym.
Sure.
So when he opened the doors, I got my first job there. I started working in a rock yard with Stefan. He's also a black belt from Cascade. Actually today he lives in Utah. A very good friend of mine still. He gave me the first opportunity to work in here, and that's how I started building myself. Eventually, here I never knew that, but when you get the cold season, is the slow season for a lot of works.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Right, and was not different when I was in the rock yard, and it's like, oh, I cannot keep you here, but I can rehire you on February, and that was probably September, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? So I feel like everything when you have a stress, have pressure, that's when you have to thrive, right? And that's when I started looking some jobs, looking at other things, and I found a job teaching in the Gracie Barra Puyallup initially.
Yeah.
So I was like, I never had really any affiliation with no big names. My gym was always smaller, and I think we talked before about that, but I feel that opens a lot of doors in a way, close a lot of doors in another way, but
But lack of politics, you didn't have to contend.
Exactly. So that opened the door for me to go to a Gracie Bar High School and teach. So when I was there, I met a lot of good people. Was not a very good fit for me, not because of Gracie Bar itself, but because the owner of the gym. So eventually I got out of the gym, and I was looking other jobs, working anything. I work in a warehouse, I work as a security in the casino.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Everything to make a living, right? And on that period, I have two friends like Steve and Bob. They helped me, and they look at me like, hey, do you want to do that? I was like, yes, I want. So it's like, okay, so let's do it. And that's how the initial idea of open the gym started, right? That was always the goal when I came in here, but not in my best dreams I was going to expect that getting here in 2019 I'm going to be able to open a gym in 2021. You know what I mean? Like 2 years, like getting here and open a gym, man, that is not real, right? So I really put my soul in the gym. I still do it, right? I put all my hard work in here. I really believe in what I do. So I try to push myself to make the best I can. So after that, it's just history, right? We started growing, and eventually we changed for the smaller gym from this new location from 1,200 square feet for 6,000 square feet. And pretty much like trying to compact everything. I think that is the story of my journey in Jiu-Jitsu, simplifying.
That's amazing, man. No, that's awesome. I mean, that's an incredible story. Well, and then how much of a culture shock just was it coming up to the U.S.? Had you been visiting here before?
Yes, I did.
That kind of leads well into the next question. I find one of the struggles for myself as a newer academy owner is you have this, you develop your student base, you have this wide variety of people who come to you, right? And they have all sorts of very dramatically varying levels of athletic ability,
yes.
Or, like some of them have wrestled before, some of them have never done a sport in their life, some of them are 20-year-olds, some of them are 60-year-olds, and everything in between. How do you address that, in a group class? You use like a curriculum necessarily, or do you just sort of...
To teach?
Yeah.
So I always try to connect the things that I teach to make it easier for people to understand. That is the first thing. I always think about the way I teach doesn't have a specific curriculum or a specific technique that I'm going to teach, but I always try to think about, okay, the fight starts standing, so what is the stand-up part of what we're going to train? And I can go and we can talk about takedowns, guard pulls, whatever it is, right? What is the stand-up game itself? And then we start to thinking about guard and guard passing, right? And after that, you have side control, mount back, and I come back to standing. So it's not a specific technique itself, but the cycle of positions and controlling positions, right? Go from the stand-up, going to the ground, passing a guard or sweeping, getting side control, getting the mount or the back, and then submitting, right? But, so that is the natural progression that I see in Jiu-Jitsu, and what I try to do is to translate that for what I teach. But again, can vary to from crazy stuff, or like I said, again, if you're standing, you can guard pull, right? Or you can do a takedown.
Sure.
So, and then, okay, so we pull guard, so maybe I work you from that guard pull, a sweep or submission from there, or maybe when the guy pull guard, I want to pass. What is the pass? I want to do it. And from there, I'm going to start to building my curriculum. Normally, I build my curriculum monthly.
Okay.
But for my experience with other schools and see other rigid curriculums, I don't like that. I feel that you have to trust in the person that is on the mats. So when I'm here, like I said, every day, teaching several classes, that give me the opportunity to look, observation, and okay, what they need.
Sure.
And okay, so if I have majority of people needing that, that's something that I'm going to address. If that was a mistake that most people do or some people do, let's fix that. And it's always hard when you have a big group, like I said, and a big variety, like different people. But if you can understand what majority of people are needing, you always can cycle and coming back to different things and try to give a little bit for everyone, right? If you think about just one person or a little group, I think you can kind of get lost. I think you have to kind of think of what you believe in Jiu-Jitsu. Like I said, that is the way I structure the things. But also, okay, they are needing guard passes. They are getting stuck in De La Riva, so let's work a De La Riva pass. And maybe I planned the class for 2 weeks, but during those 2 weeks, I feel that didn't really got where I want, so I can extend to the third week. Or maybe they went too fast and they learned that was very easy. Maybe I put a week and I changed the techniques and the curriculum for the next week. So I build my curriculum monthly, thinking about all the sequence, right, in the jiu-jitsu match, but also with the observation classes and see what my students really need.
Sure.
So kind of having a little wiggle room to change if I need or not.
No, yeah, it's nice to have that adaptability or that ability to change things up. Mm-hmm. Well, and then further from that, like an additional challenge, and that makes sense to me, but mapping that onto like promotions, and this is something that I think all students are super interested in, like what motivates the coach to promote me or give me a stripe or whatever. And so I'm curious what those things look like to you in terms of what you're looking for in a student when you're looking at promoting them to the next level. And to frame this out a little bit more, you know, there's kind of the obvious, like, well, if they can tap blue belts regularly, they're probably in that blue belt category. But it also seems to me that if somebody just comes in who's a D1 wrestler, they might be able to, you know, because of pressure, tap a blue belt or something. You know, it's something that you can come in with some sort of, you know, high-level MMA background or something else and be good on the mats from the jump, but you don't necessarily get a blue belt in your first week because of that. So what in your mind as an instructor and a coach motivates you to promote people?
So when I start teaching, I always promote it in kind of merit. And that was pretty much it, right? But again, when I started to really study jiu-jitsu and study management at the gyms and study other big professors and having listened to what they have to say, I started to test the new methods. And today what I do is I have a minimum amount of classes you have to attend to be able to go to the next level. Yeah. That can be a stripe, that can be a belt, but that is the minimum amount of classes. And once you reach that amount of classes, I start to really evaluate you. Maybe when you reach that, you're ready. Maybe you're not. So you also need to understand that you have different people. You have the athlete that train six times a week, and you have the dad that works all day and train twice a week when he can train twice a week. So how you gonna really evaluate them, right? You have to be subjective about it. Sure. You need to have some structure, but you also need to have that wiggle room to work. Again, if I have a old man, like let's say a master.
Sure,
right?
Right.
Because I'm getting there too. So you're gonna look different than when you see an 18-year-old full of energy with all their time in the world, right? So what I see is initially the attendance. That is the minimum amount because I think that is fair. Because why are going to promote you if you're not really coming to classes and training, right? But if you are coming to classes and training, you should be improving, right? And I feel like that put a little bit of the pressure on myself, a little more than my student, because if you get in that number of classes that I pre-establish for you to be able to get on the next level and you're not on that next level, maybe my class was not good enough for that. So I have to get better in teaching you. So when you get that number of classes, you should be able to get closer to that level. So I feel when I put the responsibility on myself, it's a little easier to solve problems because I don't have to wait for no one else. I can do for myself.
Shifts the control to you, for sure.
Exactly. So kind of when I have the number of classes, let's say you got 30 classes, you're a white belt, you should be able to get your first stripe. Are you ready for your first stripe? You're not, right? And on top of that, I also think that is a little different when you talk about kids because we have to use the stripes, the belts, the ranking system also as educational tool.
Sure.
Right. Yeah. So if I see a kid, he can be super athletic, can be super good, but he's not really behaving. He's being disrespectful. How am I going to show him that? How am I going to promote him and give him a reward for not doing what he should be doing.
Right.
So I feel that that's that subjective part of it. You need really to think about who is your student, and then from there, like, okay, what is going to be better for him, right? It's going to be promoting him or not. From my experience, I feel that it's better to hold someone than giving too fast.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I feel this, like, the outcome of it, you're going to see much more people doing something that they shouldn't, or giving up because they got promoted super fast, than someone that was promoted too late.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You want them to be fully matured and
Exactly.
able to handle that. You don't want to hand them that bell too early and have them
Yes.
feel bad when they go to some other school
Exactly.
and get lit up. No, that makes sense to me. Well, and we talked about, because then there's the element of jiu-jitsu, and people who are watching this, probably train jiu-jitsu, so they already know this. But for those who may not know, there's no-gi and there's gi jiu-jitsu, and those have their own sort of storied histories. But you do have no-gi classes here.
Yes.
What's your philosophy on gi versus no-gi? And
I love both. I feel older I get, less no-gi I do it. I think that is because of the nature of the sports. On the gi, you can slow down everything because your grips. With no gi, the athleticism is a big part of the game. So less athletic and less in shape you are, harder it's going to be to really do no gi. But when you translate to jiu-jitsu, I really believe that if you have a good jiu-jitsu, you should be able to do both. For sure, you're going to have different grips, different techniques you can use, but the core principle of jiu-jitsu is going to be there, either if it is gi or no gi. But again, it's a matter of you like or you don't, but also a matter of athleticism a lot of the times. When you look for like older people, right, like the masters, they're looking more for the gi. One, because the athleticism is slowly going away, and second, avoid a lot of the injuries because you slow down the game. So faster pace you go, easier it is for you to get hurt. Sure. But in my opinion, that is a bigger difference. I see a lot of people talking about two different sports. Maybe competitive is going to be hard to prepare yourself for both because the little grips and the style of game, one being so much more physical than the other one. But the core principles of jiu-jitsu, I believe that is the same, and you should be able to go for both, either then gi or no gi, very well if you have a solid jiu-jitsu.
that makes sense to me. So you would encourage your students to do both. Maybe it's not a requirement necessarily.
No,
but
I feel like I'm pretty chill about that in here in the school. I feel like I try to figure out why you're here and kind of like, okay, so you like what? You like more gi, more no gi? But normally, because we have more gi classes, majority of people train more in the gi. But I feel that if you have 50-50, that is something that I'm curious about it when we start to be able to put more no-gi classes. If that is what is gonna be the difference? Maybe one, if the age group is gonna be different,
Sure,
the range of ages, or maybe no-gi you see like younger people, in the gi you can see more older people. I still don't know, but that's what I believe is gonna happen.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see it mapping out that way for sure. A lot of those young wrestlers are coming out of high school, they're looking for a place to transition their skill set. Yeah, hard roles.
Yes.
How about for competition? With your students, do you see competition as a necessity? Like, do people have to compete to advance in jiu-jitsu?
I don't believe you have to. What I believe that competition that is going to make your jiu-jitsu grow faster. For two reasons. First, you're going to have different looks that a lot of times in the gym you don't have, right? And the second thing is because you're under stress, you have a lot of people watching. Every single mistake you make in a competition, you're going to remember. You're not going to forget that, right? Because it's going to, you're really going to, oh man, I missed the match because I didn't grab the sleeve, or I didn't hold his pants and wasn't able to get up, and I didn't get my sweep or my takedown. So you're always going to have those mistakes that are going to stick with you. A lot of times you make those mistakes every day in the gym, and you're like, oh, whatever, you know what I mean? You don't have a lot to think about it. So when you go to a tournament, you're going to have new looks, you're going to have new people that you never trained, so you're really going to keep yourself real on your technique. People is going to try to take your hat off.
Yeah.
And your mistakes you're going to remember. That's like my experience of it. I always come back on Monday after the tournament, like if I lost, like I want to drill 100,000 times the same position to never make that mistake again.
It's motivating.
It is.
For sure.
It is.
Well, and then, okay, and so this is a question to kind of switch gears here for a second that a lot of people wanted me to ask about. I'm curious about too. So you're about one of your students in particular. So you're the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach for one of the legends in the sport of MMA and BJJ, and that's Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson. What's it like coaching somebody with that level of? I mean, he's got a fairly large social profile, let's say, a relative degree of fame, and he has this athletic pedigree. I mean, he's one of the GOAT, practitioners, certainly in MMA and, arguably in BJJ as well. He's just, he's a high level guy. So I assume a lot of instructors or coaches would find that intimidating going into it. What's it like training with him and training him?
I think it's it's awesome that like the first time I met him, I was a fun boy, like, hey, shaking his hand, asking him to take a picture, right? But once we met him and I was like, okay, we're on the mats, I feel that I treat everyone the same. I'm going to talk crap with everyone on the mats the same. I'm going to make fun of it. It is not different with him. And I think because we keep real, that's why he likes it. It's not something that, I have to do something different for him or nothing. The relationship was very fun. It was nothing that we forced, nothing. I met him through his old MMA coach, Steve Skids.
Oh, okay.
He's going to help us with the technique today. And he came a few times on the older location to roll with us. And he enjoyed rolling with us. And it was funny because he always said that, I'm never going to do a class. I never did a class, right? Like a group class. And eventually he started coming, brought his kids in here. He started training too and enjoying the environment. And for me, a big part of it is because we keep real. I don't treat him different as no one else, right? It's a place where he's just Demetrius. It's not Mighty Mouse,
Yeah.
And about his ability, it's awesome having someone that you can just play like a video game where you're going to talk things about, right? Hey, you could do this, you could do that. And because the high-level athlete and high-level IQ that he have for fighting, for grappling, he can start to play with this and kind of like try to use those tools that you're trying to present to him. I feel that he's the type of guy that doesn't matter where he went, he's going to be successful, right? For his mindset, for his athleticism, for his background, for anything. So having him here is is an honor, right? It's very good to be able to share the mats with him and exchange a little bit of my experience with him.
That's awesome. Well, I think that speaks to something that I've definitely noticed in jiu-jitsu, where it is kind of a great equalizer in a lot of ways. Like, it really doesn't matter what your background is or what your job is, or whether you're a housewife or a neurosurgeon or you're a manual laborer, whatever it is. Like, once we put on the gi and we step on the mats, there's a level of equality that's really cool. Like,
it is.
It's pretty awesome.
Everyone is like dressing the same, is smelling the same, sweating the same. So really, I truly believe on that. I feel that's how I grew up. Like I said, I started very young. So seeing all those different people on the mats and having all those different examples, doesn't matter if you are a labor worker or if you are a brain surgeon, everyone is like good people in the mats, right?
Yeah.
For sure you're going to have some bad apples, but for the most of it, like, you have good people in jiu-jitsu. You have people that care about it, and again, doesn't matter what the background. So I think that is the only sport that you really can have like a teenager that have like 16 years old. It's like a higher rank and has more responsibilities, or is a senior position that maybe that guy that is super accomplished on his life.
Right.
I don't see any other circumstances and other places you see that, right? So jiu-jitsu bring that.
That is pretty neat.
Yeah, and then again, that is a very good for everyone's ego.
Yeah.
So that is an ego check every day when you enter on the mats, and that's why I feel jiu-jitsu is so powerful.
And I totally agree with that. I think that is one of the best things about it to me. What are some of the other things that I guess you see as what keeps you interested in jiu-jitsu? You've been doing it for a long time, but you still obviously love it when you talk about it.
Yes.
What are the things that it's given you, or that you see as benefits that it gives to people?
I feel in different different times of my life, I have different thoughts about it, and today I feel that jiu-jitsu is a tool of self-improvement. I truly believe that anyone can use jiu-jitsu to get better. Maybe you want to lose weight, maybe you need a social group, maybe you struggle with like mental health, or maybe, I don't know, you just want to learn self-defense, maybe you need confidence. So it doesn't matter what you're looking for, if you know how to use that tool, the powerful tool, you're going to be able to get that. And it's hard because a lot of people only see that once they are already on the mats. It's not something that a lot of people can marketing, right? I think that marketing happens like mouth to mouth more than anything else. When you have someone that you trust, a friend, a family member, that get close to you and say, hey, you should train, you should do this, you should do that. I feel that is the powerful thing, because the close that you are with that person, right? But try to market in that is very hard. That's what I see it. But yeah, I truly believe that, and be able to improve every day is what keeps me motivated. Know that I can learn every single day, not just learn, study like cool names on the internet, but sometimes I have kids that came in here from a wrestling camp and they do a different grips, like, oh, do that again. Like, and I believe that if you have that type of mindset, the white belt mentality, where everything you have to try and see how it works and be interested about it,
Sure.
you're going to keep yourself motivated to keep training, because that is something that I always tell my students, is that this is not a sprint, this is a marathon. So like, keep your pace and keep working hard to try to accomplish those things is very important, and not just try to like, that happen a lot, right? You see that white belt, they get in the gym, he's trained like 5 times a week, and in 6 months, he disappears. And then you have the guy that trains twice a week, but he's training like for 5-6 years and consistently. You're going to see how much more he's going to grow because of it, right? So, that's my view on jiu-jitsu today. Like I said before, I truly believe in that. I truly believe in what I do. I teach jiu-jitsu in Brazil for long years without making any money. And even like that was something that really kept me motivated, just because what this can bring to you, right? The self-knowledge and the people you can meet on the mats and how you can grow in different areas, right? So if people see that, I feel like you cannot stop, man. You get bite by the bug.
Yeah. That's like, you're in it now. No, that makes sense. Well, then, so with all these benefits, and I agree with everything you just extolled about the art, I think it's amazing it does offer those things. For what advice, I guess, is the question I would ask next, that you would give to somebody who is just starting, that white belt who is hitting it hard and training 6 days a week, and if you don't want him to burn out, if you want him to have the highest degree of success, what do you counsel people in that vulnerable stage of just starting to be successful?
Take your time. Don't rush yourself. Remember why you started, and allow yourself to be bad in something. I feel a lot of times, especially when we get in a certain age, right, we're already adults, we have families, we have jobs, and we're accomplishing something. When you enter in jiu-jitsu and you start something brand new, if you don't have the mindset of allow yourself to be bad in something, you're never going to improve, and eventually you're going to lose. I always ask someone, hey, do you think you can beat yourself on the first day? Can you imagine the fight? And they're like, oh, that's sometimes people are like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And for me, that's what you need to do, right? When you compare yourself to other people, you always gonna get frustrated.
Sure.
Always gonna get frustrated, and it's hard. It's not easy to not compare yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I feel that is the first thing that I tell people, like, take your time, don't compare yourself, and remember how you were yesterday. And if you're better today, you're on the right track. Don't be afraid to improve slowly. Be afraid of not improving.
Okay, I like that. That's a good note. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a pleasure, man. Really looking forward to the technique.
Thank you for being here.
And come out to Grapple Club in Sumner, get good rolls in with these guys. They're phenomenal.